One of the best quotes I've heard, well, all year or for the last 10 years is this. And it says, "Lord, forgive me if I have forgiven too much, but you're the one who gave me the bad example." And that was kind of articulated by Pope Francis, and he tells about his experiences in his new book called "The Name of God is Mercy." And he tells about the time when he was a young priest in Buenos Aires, and he would always err on the side of over-forgiveness because he was so aware of his own sins. And he figured, if I err on the side of over-forgiveness, maybe God is going to be more merciful with me. And in this book, it talks about a novel written by the Scottish author Bruce Marshall called "To Every Man a Penny." And the author tells a story of a soldier who is not repentant for his sins. And he's with the priest, and the priest says, "Are you repentant for your sins?" And he says, "You know what? I'm not repentant for my sins." So the priest asks him, "But are you sorry that you are not sorry?" And the guy said, "You know what? I am sorry that I'm not sorry." And then the priest absolved him, gave him forgiveness. And, Pope Francis says that's how it is with God. That God will go to any length to find the smallest entry, the smallest crack, just to get into a man or a woman's life. Even the thief on the cross, who was a bad man, Jesus, God, found that crack in him and said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." So God's mercy, it's unlimited, it's incredible. And even if there is a crack that you can only see with an electron microscope, somehow the mercy, the love of God, the forgiveness of God will get in if the person is willing. If the person is willing. And Pope Francis, interesting guy, was saying when he was in Buenos Aires, there was a woman in his congregation, and her husband was very abusive, very violent, so of course they split up, they got a divorce, but he disappeared, so she had no income whatsoever. And eventually she said, "You know what, I have to sell myself." So she became a prostitute, started selling her body. And the Pope knew this. Well, it wasn't the Pope then. He knew this, but he continued loving the woman, and every week he would give her a food parcel to help. So years later, when the woman's situation improved, she came back to the parish and said, "Father, I really want to thank you." "Oh, for the food parcels?" "No, not just for the food parcels. I want to thank you that you always kept calling me Señora. You always respected me. You always called me Madam. And you knew what I was going through. You knew I was prostituting myself. You always showed this wonderful mercy to me." And another story he recounts in this book is a guy called Diego Lejaraga, who was a transgender man. And when he got his operation, I think he was, in his late 40s, suddenly he couldn't go to his local church. And people despised him, people were calling his names, making jokes, and every day he used to go to the church, but he just couldn't gain access. So he wrote a letter to the Pope when Francis became Pope. And the Pope, read the letter, called him up, invited him over to the Vatican, and met with him, and just gave him a big hug. Not saying, "I approve of your lifestyle," but saying that the mercy of God is still available to you. There is still a place for you. So showing mercy, blessed are the merciful. Blessed meaning that when we show mercy, there's a joy, there's a happiness that will enter our lives. And then the Pope also, in this book, he says the church does not exist to condemn people, but to bring about an encounter with the visceral love of God's mercy. I didn't know what that word visceral meant. Visceral means deep inward feelings rather than the intellect. So what he's saying is you need to be with people and spend time with people so you can lead them into an encounter just with the deep emotions of mercy and forgiveness that God gives you. Can you imagine when the thief was forgiven, what he felt? And I love this verse. When Jesus was walking, he saw a man called Matthew. And Matthew was just a rip-off artist. He was a tax collector. He was probably the most hated segment in his society, the guy that had the big house on the hill. And he tells Matthew, "Follow me." And Matthew follows him, invites him to his house to dinner, etc. And then the Pharisees are asking, well, why on earth is your teacher, eating with these tax collectors and these sinners? And on hearing this, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor. And many times, we deal more with the healthy, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice, for I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Every Jew knew that phrase, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, came from the book of Hosea. And Hosea was a preacher, a good person. And God told him, go and marry a temple prostitute. Married the prostitute, had 2 children, she slept with other men, she ended up in the slave market, and then God said, go buy her back. And the worst thing was she wasn't even going for full price, she was going for half price. I want you to buy her back for half price and show her love, show her mercy, take her back into the chamber. I couldn't even imagine doing something like that. But that's the point of it. The mercy of God, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up that he would leave the 99 sheep and show and go and find the 1 sheep. The mercy, the mathematics of mercy and grace don't add up. But my challenge to all of us is, blessed are the merciful, because they will be shown mercy. Why don't you go and show mercy today?